Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Wildcard Sunday where we look at things a little bit different from our regularly scheduled videos and comics during the week. Today we're taking a look at Dart issue number 1, cover dated February 1996 from Image Comics, more specifically from the Erik Larsen part of the Image universe, Highbrow Entertainment, a spin-off from Savage Dragon, originally into Freak Force and now I guess into Dart, the miniseries that I actually didn't know existed until maybe a few months ago when I was doing the Savage Dragon reviews, and I caught some of the ads in some of those Savage Dragon issues. So sought it out, looked for it, found it on my comic shop for a really decent price, pretty much cover price, I think. I don't think anyone is seeking these out specifically, and the main reason was just the really beautiful, kind of gorgeous art that I saw in those ads, as you can see on this cover here. Just by mistake, I bought also the kind of variant cover, I guess some not so common back then. I thought it was the second issue or something, and the miniseries was 4 issues long. It's actually 3 issues long, so I am now the proud owner of 2 different copies of issue 1, the regular cover and the variant cover, both beautiful pieces of art, as you can see here. And the artist, not someone I know of and have heard of other than in this context and the Dart miniseries, so I'm not quite sure where he's from and you know, what's happened since then and what he's been working on. Haven't really found a lot of info on him, but anyways, we've got this miniseries, so we're going to take a look at. Nice, beautiful, colored paint. I'm not sure if this is painted cover or possibly like wood pencils or what exact medium he's using here, watercolor maybe, but absolutely gorgeous art, very distinctive style. The interior art is not like this, it's more just traditional pen and ink, but he also does the colors, I believe, at least if what the credits are telling me are true. And again, very distinctive, not exactly what I was expecting in the interiors, as it relates to having seen these ads and these covers that are more kind of painterly, but very interesting nonetheless. So let's crack her open, have a look inside and see what I'm talking about. So for credits, we've got, so it says Black Mermaid Productions. So is this a particular studio or something, or is that the creative team here and what they're calling themselves? Not quite sure, but we've got Bruce Love and Julie Dietrich on story. Joseph SZEKERES, SZEKERES, I assume is how it's pronounced. Credited as art, so I'm assuming pencils, inks, and colors, right? Chris Eliopoulos is doing the lettering once again. The regular guy doing the Savage Dragon, at least during the 90s. And that's pretty much it. They give Erik Larsen credit as the editor and Dart creator, so I'm sure he is having some sort of oversight over this series, right? And yeah, so, you know, it's very open art on the inside, and the colors aren't quite what I expect from, like, you know, computer colored Image comics of the 90s. Pretty flat colors all throughout. I still enjoy it, but just again a little bit different than what I was expecting from the painterly cover art, but really fun stuff. Starting off right away with some interesting layouts with these, you know, kind of diagonal vertical panels here, and you know, we think we're kind of starting off the story with these characters, but really what's going on here, and this menacing figure and silhouette here, is just kind of sort of a focus group of kids playing with toys. So that was kind of an interesting swerve there. And we get the double page splash, which I don't know is necessarily, you know, what I would have used for this shot here or if it's warranted, but, you know, definitely gets us right into the story on page 2 and 3. You know, the artist has a very distinctive style, and I've talked about how some artists, you know, have trouble drawing children. I feel like this one, this guy's pretty successful here, and even though his art is very stylized, we definitely recognize these as children and not just small adults. And yeah, so they're playing with the toys here, and then we pull back even more to see inside what is, I guess, a highly technological toy company. And, you know, they're just running, you know, these kids through the ringer and trying out these toys. And very interesting kind of dialogue where it says, these toys will inevitably promote violence, sibling rivalry, nihilistic, and truculent behavior. Truculent? I've never seen that word. I don't know if that's a real word. It's got to be if it's in a comic, right? There'll be a big hit, Mr. Brockman. So that's actually all positives here for toy sales. So there's kind of a feminine vibe to the art, even though it's drawn by a man. And what I mean by that is, you know, you may have encountered this too. I'm not trying to be, you know, a genderist in any kind of way here, but, you know, most times when you look at art and comic book art specifically, you can tell if it was been drawn by a man or by a woman. There's a poster in this issue by Colleen Doran, who's kind of doing her take on these characters. And I definitely think Colleen Doran's art has a slightly more feminine kind of energy to it because she is a woman, makes sense. But here, even though it's drawn by a man, I just get a real kind of feminine energy to it, which is not bad in any way. Just something that I noticed in her depiction of men. Generally, what you'll get from women is more obvious eyelashes on the men and the lips more kind of clearly defined, where the men always maybe look just ever so slightly feminine. It's a common thing in art. I taught art for years at the high school level, 17 years. And I noticed that men and boys tend to draw men and boys better as they're starting out and have more an affinity to that, obviously because you've lived in a male body your whole life, and they struggle and have to put more effort in trying the ladies, and then vice versa for the ladies. They draw the women really well, but the men tend to look maybe a little bit more feminine, and with the boys, the women tend to look a little bit more masculine, right? So we're getting a little bit of that here, I think, but from a male artist and quite a feminine vibe. It's not something I've encountered a lot. Great design here on the costume, pretty intricate, right, with the hair and the straps and stuff, but quite different overall from Image Comics of that period, I think. And storytelling wise, we're not getting the typical kind of Image splash pages and lack of backgrounds. Pretty fully formed artist who's got a very distinctive style, very flowy and dynamic. So the head of the toy company walks into who seems to be the girl who's designing all of the designs of the toys, right? And right now she's working on designs for a toy called Force Folk, but he's kind of saying that's from the 80s, kind of a more friendly type of toy, and he needs some designs for this new team that they're modeling on an actual what I guess, because I didn't get all that in this issue, maybe we'll find out in the next issue, what I guess is kind of a super team, and looking for an extra kind of vigilante character that people can relate to a bit more. Vigilantes not having power, more kind of relying on their wits or weapons or technology or something like that. And so he's telling her to let go, stop those designs and come up with something for that. And you get a little bit of a shot here of the Forest Gum line, which is somewhat 80s reminiscent, maybe a little bit like ElfQuest, right? But I do want to mention the flat coloring once again here. I think works really well. I've talked before about how I love when for night scenes they kind of use like a deep blue kind of monochrome all throughout, which is what the artist is doing here. It looks really good. And listen, a little bit tropey and stereotypical. Once again, a lady in distress in an alleyway being chased by some muggers, right? This is not just an 80s trope, but just a trope of action movie, 90s trope in comics, but 80s movies as well. I guess that's where that comes from, RoboCop, things like that. And then boom, we get the money shot, the first money shot anyways, of our main character in the series. Looks really good. Again, I was surprised at the openness of the art. It's all mostly lines, not a lot of hatching and stuff, but really adept at different angles and different points of view. This shot really cool. I really love the up close elements here that are cropped real tight and that are layered over Dart here. Looks really good. I feel like maybe he's taken a bit of inspiration from Eric Larson's original design, how he does that kind of swirly reflective look on Dart's costume. So basically, yeah, introducing us to Dart and her kicking the crap out of these guys, these muggers. We get a quick flashback here where we switch to black and white. That's our cue. Usually a change in color really helps in comics to convey a flashback sequence, and also the panels are shaped differently and a little more restrained in the layout as opposed to what we're seeing in the, we'll call it the 90s portion of the book. And basically the flashback is showing us that Dart, as a little girl, watched her father basically beat her mother to death. Pretty violent. We don't see, it's all a little bit off camera there. Well done storytelling wise, not too gruesome. And I noticed this shot here, I feel like is definitely the same shot as the cover. So it feels like maybe the artist recycled this drawing here at some point to then, go a little bit further with it, probably blew it up and did a full kind of painterly watercolor version of it, whatever medium he's using. Again, I'm not quite sure. But all these different angles and points of view, this interesting kind of layout and panel shapes, right? Not just squares and rectangles. I'm really impressed by this series and specifically the specific artistic vision that this artist has. His style is vastly different from anything I've seen before or since. It doesn't really fit into the typical kind of image look. There's moments where I feel like it looks a little bit like some manga stuff, but also overall kind of has a European vibe. Almost reminds me of some stuff I would see, not in so much as the subject matter, but the actual aesthetic. Some stuff I would see in 90s heavy metal magazines, right? I don't mean like the music, but the actual magazine, heavy metal, with a lot of European creators. So here's that Colleen Doran pinup I was telling you about, or Colleen Doran. I'm not quite sure how to say that. Very cool, same kind of treatment, painterly treatment as the art on the cover by the series artist. And I think it works really well. It's pretty coherent with what we've gotten art-wise up to this point. And again, what I was talking about now, a female artist drawing male characters here that, tend to look a little bit feminine. Even the costume design here, looking at this is definitely designed by a woman. No man would design a suit for themselves like this, I don't think. It's extremely revealing and extremely feminine. Not, shitting on it in any way. I'm just pointing it out. Yeah, pretty cool. And I'm assuming these are maybe characters that are going to be appearing throughout the whole series that we haven't encountered yet. This character, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. He's filming the whole scene outside of Dart kicking these muggers, kicking the ass of these muggers. And as he turns around, his girlfriend's coming out of the bathroom. Don't film me, go away, let's get back to bed. So I'm not quite sure what this kind of B storyline is leading up to, but I guess we'll find out next issue. We've got the introduction of Killcat here, which I now understand. I guess this is the first time that he met Dart, so he kind of jumps in to help her out there. Like this angle. A bit of a Bart Sears kind of vibe to the musculature here, I would say, on Killcat. And in the foreground here, just this extra little bit, because I'm like, what exactly is he standing on? Now I understand it's some sort of garbage dumpster, right, with the elements in the foreground here, the Coke can, the old spray bottle, all the garbage here. Pretty well done. And yeah, as I was saying, this is kind of Killcat introducing himself to Dart. Nice little touch here. I'm assuming what he's doing is he's biting his teeth together here as he kind of is pointing out to Dart how attracted he is to her, trying to flirt with her and get her number. So I was a bit confused in the Savage Dragon reviews when we got to the part where Killcat was kind of, strongly kind of imposing himself on Dart and trying to get her to date him again. So I guess what was happening in Savage Dragon was relating to this miniseries here. As the president's kind of sitting there worried about his toy line, he hears about Dart on the news, right? As we see the toy design artist struggling with designs, this new design that he's asked of her. So as he catches the whole thing on the news, he gets an idea and decides that Dart is going to be that vigilante that he's looking for. Kind of a simple, really, works with the aesthetic and everything, but a simple symbolic shot of the city here that you can get through real quick as an artist and get a page done quickly, but that gets the point across, establishes where this is happening. This whole layout is pretty interesting, right? Where there's no actual kind of panel breakup. The side of her drawing table is kind of creating the panel here. The continuation of his silhouette with the picture here, or rather the design drawing that she did here, kind of closes off that panel, the top of the newspaper there. Pretty interesting design here. I think it looks pretty cool. Another thing I want to mention before we end the review is the paper. I was surprised that something, in a period of the mid-90s where I feel like all the image books had moved over to glossy paper, right, that's a bit more reflective. This one here has what I've talked about before is probably the thickest, best quality newsprint that was available. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that he's using flat colors and not computer coloring, where maybe someone figured out that'll look better on this type of paper than on the glossy paper, which I've talked about in past reviews with some of the Marvel books and the DC books from the early 90s. So I think maybe that's what's happening here. And then, just giving off, trying to give off the fact that the toy company president is a pretty violent guy, literally will smack his employees here, kind of a parallel to what Dart maybe went through when she was a kid, and that'll probably play into the storyline a little bit later, right? So I assume abusive men are going to be part of the series, not just in the first issue. And as he tells her that he thinks she should use Dart as the basis for the design for that vigilante leader character that he wants. I like how he mentions here too, model the bridging character on her, talking about Dart. Hell, use her name, she can't copyright it. I'm not quite sure why, someone like that would not or could not copyright their name. Maybe because it's an object or something. Someone like Madonna, I'm pretty sure her name is copyrighted. Prince, things like that, right? There have been legal issues in the past about names. The Ultimate Warrior, right? If you're into wrestling, you know about that. So I'm not quite sure how true that is there, but I guess for the needs of the storyline, that's how it's going to go. And the last page just introducing us to the full team here called Vogue Attack, the character that we saw at the beginning. Some pretty fun and different designs here. I'm not quite sure about this guy, kind of slimy zombie guy. But, again, this male figure here, as I said, very defined lips, kind of a more feminine design to his clothing, right? More cloth and foldy stuff, for lack of a better term. This walrus guy is pretty interesting too. And this guy's just the shape of his head and his ears and just his face is interesting to me as well. He's got some sort of anvil for a hand here, it seems. So some fairly interesting characters and different designs that, we're not used to seeing from Image Comics. I think this artist is pretty inventive and distinctive in his designs and his art style. And I'm pretty happy about this purchase. That was one of the main reasons I sought this book out. I thought the artist was quite different and had his own thing kind of going. And, having gone through this first issue, I can definitely tell you that I was not disappointed at all. Angela Spawn poster. As a kid, I would be a little bit disappointed by this. It's a good piece of art, but, it's just a cool shot of Angela with, a big headshot of Spawn and the cape. Greg Capullo has probably done this in an afternoon, probably got it done pretty quickly. Probably not the most involved piece of artwork he's ever done. What's interesting though here, it does seem like it is inked by him and not by anyone else. It does say art by Greg Capullo, colors by Brian Haberlin. So yeah, definitely a piece that was inked by Capullo himself, which shows you, as I'm doing Quasar reviews right now and he's being inked by someone else, his earlier style and being inked by other people, gave kind of different aesthetics on top. Once he started working on Spawn, that McFarlane aesthetic definitely changed his art style a little bit. Danny Miki kind of followed that, but made it even, I don't know if I'd say better, but even more kind of codified almost, that type of inking. And then I feel like Greg Capullo is somewhere in the middle here, and he is kind of trying to do the Danny Miki / Todd McFarlane inking on this Angela Spawn poster. Body count, I've got, I don't have the whole miniseries yet. At some point, I will be reviewing that once I have all the issues. They are hard to find, and some of them are a little bit expensive, so still working on that. But I love Simon Bisley, and, this is definitely something I'm interested in reading and reviewing. Unfortunately, I think they spelled his name wrong here. Bisley? I think it's Bisley, right? That's probably a typo. So this is what's going on. Okay, so this kind of puts me on the timeline. So we're in around issue 26 of Savage Dragon as Dart is coming out. I reviewed this issue. You can check it out in the archives. And this was only interesting. It doesn't literally say, but I feel like this is like a reprint of issue 1. It says only 99 cents, new and improved, new covers, new art, the Savage Dragon's humble beginning as you've never seen it before. So I feel like that relates to the first issue. The artwork back here does not, but I feel like there, as it says new covers, this would be a new cover of Bedrock versus Savage Dragon for the miniseries issue number 3. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but maybe collecting the Image Zero stuff and the extra pages Larson added to the miniseries. I could see a bit of Super Patriot here, so that's probably issue 2 in his introduction. I'm not sure where that is for here. I've seen this pinup before, just a cool shot of the dragon. And this to me definitely relates to issue 1, where the whole first issue starts off with Savage Dragon as a police officer squaring off against Cutthroat and his girlfriend, whose name escapes me right now. And I guess at this point, Bone was starting to be published by Image Comics as well. But it's with Scholastic that Bone really became super successful. Have to look at that at some point too. There you go, guys. That is my review of Dart issue number 1 from Image Comics. If you're still watching and you are subscribed, thank you so much for sticking around. I really do appreciate it. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you, and it really helps this channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. So thank you so much, and have an awesome day. Like,
Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.